At 06:12 hours, the E-2D Hawkeye flying above the USS Abraham Lincoln painted 60 separate contacts lifting off from the Iranian coast to the north. Down in the Combat Information Center, the crew read it fast and read it right. A drone raid, and a familiar one. The Shahed 136 was the workhorse of Iran's campaign, a cheap propeller-driven kamikaze that ran roughly $20,000 a copy. The strike group had beaten these swarms before. The procedures were second nature. Before the Hawkeye had even finished tagging all 60 tracks, the Aegis systems aboard the escort destroyers were already building intercept solutions. The first Standard missile left the rail at 06:14 and took its target apart cleanly at 6 nautical miles out. Then another kill, then another. Every rep matched the drills, but nobody topside was looking at what sat 400 feet beneath the carrier's keel. A Kilo-class submarine had been parked there, dead still for 8 hours, not trailing the formation, not lurking off to one side, but directly under the hull, riding the thermocline, that cold layer beneath the warm surface water that bends sonar beams around anything hiding below it. It was the one position where neither the Lincoln's hull-mounted sonar nor the towed arrays of her escorts could effectively search. The boat had slipped into place at 10 p.m. the night before, hours before the first drone left the ground, and it had been listening the entire time. Every radar pulse the strike group threw out traveled down through the water column just as clearly as it traveled through the air, and the Kilo's passive sensors had spent 8 hours quietly mapping exactly how the Abraham Lincoln defended herself, the order interceptors got assigned, how fast the processing cycle ran, how many missiles it took to kill one drone. For 3 weeks beforehand, Iranian targeting officers had used that same data to build something that looked, on radar, exactly like another drone raid. It wasn't. It was a stopwatch. Lieutenant Commander James Cole ran electronic warfare aboard the Lincoln. His job was to read the invisible traffic between Iran's weapons and whatever was steering them. He'd had the drone engagement up on his secondary screen since 0612. But his primary display was fixed on something that didn't sit right. The timing. Each wave wasn't launching on a clock. Each wave was arriving exactly as the Aegis intercept queue from the previous wave cleared out. Someone was watching the ship's defenses breathe in real time and pacing each new wave to land at the worst possible moment. That kind of intelligence doesn't come from a ground controller on the coast. And it doesn't come from satellites either. It requires something with a passive acoustic ear pressed right up against the formation's own radar emissions. Something already inside the perimeter. At 0619, Cole wrote down one number, the gap between Wave 1 and Wave 2. Then he waited to see if Wave 3 would confirm it. At 0623 it did. 70 more Shaheds rose from a different bearing, a different range, spreading across the eastern horizon, and the interval matched his number exactly. He started narrowing a position. In the Combat Information Center, Tactical Action Officer Lieutenant Commander Hassan Usey had owned the fight since the first contact. Wave 1 down, Wave 2 running, interceptor stocks ticking downward on schedule. Nothing that looked out of the ordinary, just the grinding, practiced rhythm of people who'd done this before and weren't rattled by it. At 0624, Cole got on the circuit. He told Usey the wave timing wasn't coming from the coast, it was being coordinated by something passive, something stationary, something directly under the ship. He said flatly, "I think there's a submarine under us." Usey glanced at his own picture, 70 inbound from the east, solutions running, magazine draining, and told Cole the towed array had been sweeping continuously since the war started and had found nothing. "Stand by." Cole closed the circuit and went back to his notebook. At 0628, a third wave broke the horizon to the west. 70 more drones, a third axis, 200 total, now converging on 3 separate bearings at once, with the Lincoln sitting in the middle, watching her escorts fight in every direction simultaneously, while the interceptor count fell faster than anyone wanted to say out loud. Cole wasn't watching the drones anymore. He'd been refining a position fix of the wave timing data for 16 straight minutes, each new interval sharpening his read on the source, a fixed acoustic sensor sitting at thermocline depth, dead beneath the hull. By 0631, he had it narrowed to within about 40 meters. He got back on with Usei, gave him the position, explained that the thermocline was bending the towed array's surge away from exactly that spot, and told him plainly, when the magazine hits 0, that submarine is going to fire. Usei looked at his numbers, wave 3 still inbound, 2 axes still live, and told Cole there was no helicopter to spare, no MH-60 Romeo he could pull off drone-killing duty to go chase a submarine position built out of timing gaps. "Your assessment's logged," he said. Cole didn't push back. He picked up a different circuit instead. Interceptors hit 40% at 0638. 20% by 0644. 32 minutes into the fight, the magazine was bleeding out wave by wave, precisely the way Iran's planners had drawn it up. At 0645, Cole called the MH-60 Romeo crew and told them to spin up, rotor turning, crew strapped in, Mark 54 torpedo loaded, waiting on nothing but a word he had no authority to give. At 0658, the last Standard missile knocked down the final Shahed of the Western Wave, and the drone fight was declared over. The magazine read 0. The Arabian Sea went quiet for exactly 4 minutes and 11 seconds. At 0702, the Lincoln's hull sonar picked up 2 torpedo launch transients on bearing 182, range 800 meters, running hot, dead beneath the keel. The alarm went out before the sonar operator had even finished processing the sound. 2 torpedoes, 800 meters, 63 seconds to impact, 0 interceptors left, 0 Standard missiles, 0 anything in the vertical launch cells. A formation that had spent the entire morning shredding drone waves now had nothing left to shoot, and a submarine that had waited 8 hours for exactly this window had just fired. The carrier threw herself into an emergency turn. Countermeasures streamed off the stern. The first torpedo bit on a decoy, its seeker locking the false signature and chasing it away from the hull, and detonated harmlessly 290 meters off the port quarter. The second torpedo didn't take the bait. It classified the decoy and rejected it in 1.8 seconds, reacquired the Lincoln's true signature, corrected course, and kept coming. 38 seconds to impact. Cole transmitted weapons free to the helicopter at 0702. He had no authority to say those words. He said them anyway, because there was no one left in the chain, and 38 seconds wasn't enough time to find someone who did. The helicopter was airborne in 11 seconds, Lieutenant Marcus Webb pushing it south at 155 knots, 50 feet off the water. Cole's 40-meter fix already loaded into the targeting system, a fix built on a submarine that hadn't moved an inch in 8 hours. The Mark 54 hit the water at 0703 and picked up the Kilo's signature in 2.1 seconds. The submarine had gone to emergency full power, loud and slow on batteries already run down, and the torpedo found it in 9 seconds and put it into the pressure hull. The second Iranian torpedo was still inbound, 18 seconds out. Webb dropped his second torpedo not on the weapon itself, but on the water directly ahead of its track, and the detonation threw 2.3 seconds of acoustic noise across the torpedo's path. It lost the Lincoln's signature, reacquired the decoy still burning 310 meters off the port bow, and followed it to detonation instead. The blast rocked the formation, threw a column of white water above the flight deck, shuddered through the hull, and touched nothing. At 0706, the Kilo's conning tower broke the surface of the Arabian Sea, riding low, listing hard to port. 8 crewmen made it to the bridge within seconds, their commanding officer among them, And what he saw when he looked north was the Abraham Lincoln already steadying back onto her original course. 0 damage, 0 casualties. Back in the Combat Information Center, Uzi got Cole on the circuit. "How long have you known there was a submarine down there?" "Since 0619, Cole told him. "Since the interval on wave 1. Through all of it, the Hawkeye had kept a passive track running on every drone launch site Iran had used that morning. 47 minutes of continuous collection, every site fixed to within 20 meters. At 0708, the Abraham Lincoln fired 12 Tomahawk cruise missiles, one for every launch site, all at once. The first impact came at 0755, the last at 0758, 3 minutes start to finish. Every site that had launched a drone against the formation that morning stopped existing in that window. Iran had thrown 200 drones at the Abraham Lincoln in a plan built in 2 layers. The swarm, to bleed every interceptor out of the formation, and a submarine parked beneath the keel for 8 hours, waiting for the exact second the magazine hit 0. It worked precisely as designed, every cell empty, every interceptor spent, 2 torpedoes already in the water with nothing left to answer them. It failed because one electronic warfare officer noticed at 0619 that the drone waves were arriving too precisely to be coincidence, and spent the next 47 minutes refusing to let that thought go even after he was told to stand by. The real threat had been sitting there the whole time. Maybe that's the part worth sitting with. Not the missiles or the torpedoes, but the fact that the whole ship survived because one man kept insisting on something nobody above him wanted to stop and check. And it's worth wondering how many of us would have kept pushing, or just logged our assessment and let it go.